And then I landed into an actual cult.
They don't even necessarily know that even though you're inside, you're looking at it with an outsider's perspective.
That did a number on me and kind of repressed a lot of my sexuality. Personally, I think the whole thing's a cult. One day, I just stopped. I just stopped. I was like, what if I stop praying? Even if God is real, this is wild.
Let's say the afterlife.
I am glad that there is not an afterlife. I had to mourn God. Like when I stopped praying and like nothing changed, it really opened up a lot of questions for me. It was like, okay, like
if I fall, I would never crawl. Get back up again, tuck my chin, uppercut like Ken, make them look off limp. I've been in the dungeon, and in my vicinity, many want vengeance. The odor was pungent, they wanted my life, but that was a sentence. At attention, cut the tension, got the mention from the rope. Got my tension, we can bend tens, we can dope. And the scarab in the hero, when the villain air, when the winning barrel, and the kill him there, when the thin.
So, all right, let's get going then. This is Life After Faith. Welcome to Ichabod, everyone. I am your host, Be Good. And you know what we do on Life After Faith episodes. We typically are just talking to people who were once people of faith. And I don't know if I'm going to branch out and do other faiths, but I come from Christianity. And so I've had Christians on. And then I got my guy, Dedrick,
yeah.
aka Psionic.
Yeah.
That was his music you were checking out on the intro there. Do you have a favorite song of yours?
I would say probably Samuel L. Jackson.
Really? So that
Yeah.
was my favorite. And I just went through the little playlist I saw on, I think it was on Apple Music.
Okay.
But what makes that one your favorite?
So I like genuinely like Samuel L. Jackson is one of my favorite actors.
Okay.
I think it's hilarious that he's got paid so much money to say like it's hilarious to me. Like somebody
Okay.
done the math and like it's a substantial amount of money to cuss.
Hmm.
But uh the actual song is more about like kind of getting back up like after being knocked down, you know what I'm saying? And very specifically being knocked down from coming from a heavily
Hmm.
religious place in life and
So
you
you were
know
sort of referring to that even in the song.
absolutely, yeah.
I wouldn't even know.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
it's kind of it's a little bit I want to say masked by the metaphor, so to speak.
Okay.
I don't want to be that guy that
Wow.
just,
Right, right, right.
you know what I mean?
Eh,
Yeah.
I got to listen to it again with that in mind now.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
crazy.
there's a specific lyric in there I think you hear you like, okay, I get it. I get it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna listen for that now. And
Yeah,
listeners, so maybe that'll be the song we play on the intro.
for
But
sure.
listeners, you go check out the song and see if you can, what lyric, put it in the comments. What lyric do you think gives away that he's talking about his former faith there? So that's
Absolutely.
what's up. All right, so then let's dive into it. You were a Christian
Yeah.
for how long?
Uh, Technically my whole life I was born and raised in a Christian family.
Mhm.
I'm from the Bahamas, and the Bahamas is still very much a Christian nation.
Oh, you
Uh,
know who's gonna love you?
who's that?
If you don't know him already, my guy who goes by Goat Herder's Guide to the Galaxy.
Okay.
You don't know who
Okay.
he is.
That sounds familiar. I might have seen him either here or maybe like commenting somewhere.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
had him.
I'm
He
pretty
he
familiar.
co-hosted an episode with me when we looked at the movie for that movie Deliverance.
Okay.
But and he sometimes comments on Ichabod, but he's an artist as well. He's from the Bahamas,
No way.
and yeah, he's from the Bahamas, and he's an artist. He's got some crazy. So his creativity, I think if you heard him, you might see some mirror and then maybe even just some like camaraderie in his style with your style.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
I
I'm
think
gonna have
y'all
to
hit
check
it
him
off.
out for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So I'll send you
Serendip
the link to his channel too. So
for sure. Yeah. I appreciate it.
okay, so you said from the Bahamas. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, born and raised in the Church of Christ. I don't know if you've heard of that
Hmm.
denomination. Um, and I was basically there until I was like, I want to say about 14, 15.
Hmm.
Uh, I made the decision to get baptized when I was 11, after seeing the
Can
Passion of the
you,
Christ.
wow, I was going to say, can you remember what made you want to
Hmm.
do that? But okay.
Yeah,
Passion of the Christ, Mel Gibson got you.
he did. He got
John
me, man.
Caviezel got you.
Got me. Yeah, yeah. Uh, and then after that, I kind of experienced like sort of a rough spell in high school.
Hmm.
Excuse me, to the point of actually dropping out. And
Hmm.
I remember my mom had changed churches. I don't know if you know Miles Monroe.
Yes.
Uh, he's passed away now, but
Hmm.
at the time they were doing an Easter service. Uh, and I went to church with my mom,
Hmm.
and they played the Passion of the Christ in church Sunday
Hmm.
morning, Easter Sunday.
In
And
church.
yeah, uh-huh.
Wow.
Yep, yep.
Okay.
So they did a little altar call after that, and I just went up,
Hmm.
gave my life back to Jesus, and for
So hold on, you said give your life back to Jesus. You said you grew up in the church. At age 11, you got baptized. Then you had a
yeah,
rough spell in high school. And then you have this Passion of the Christ moment to give your life back to Christ.
yeah,
Let me
yeah,
go
yeah.
back to the before all that. Before you had the rough spell in high school, what was it that you went back to? Like when you say you gave your life back to Christ, what were you doing before the rough spell that made you feel like you and God were kind of locked in?
So I was like being mentored by like a few of the guys at the church, the older guys.
Hmm.
We would meet up and do Bible studies and stuff like that. But to be honest, like at that age, I felt like it was kind of corny and not necessarily something I was looking for.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Did
Um,
it all feel Did it feel ritualistic or did it feel like you were in something like a relationship with a guy? Like, was there anything relational about it?
no. So
Okay.
I remember weeping
Mm,
at the Passion of the Christ movie. I
mm,
remember crying like, damn, like okay,
mm,
like seeing it visually to me made it real.
mm,
After that, I cried at my baptism, and
mm,
I felt more like I was crying because I was making my mom proud
mm.
rather than
Yeah.
like having some sort of experience.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, just like I was a kid, and you know what I'm saying? I went back to doing kid shit, and
Hmm.
um, yeah, so I ended up going to high school and getting mixed up with the wrong crowd, smoking weed, selling weed, you know,
Mm,
whole nine. Mom had no idea. She just knew I was like skipping school.
hmm.
Um, so and eventually she was like, "Look, if you're not gonna go to school, then you might as well go to work."
Mm,
So that's what I did.
mm,
And um, yeah, so then I went to Miles Monroe's church, and we went there for a while. And I feel like that was more engaging.
hmm.
I wouldn't say I feel like I had this like personal relationship with God. It just felt
Mm.
kind of like a better community.
Okay.
Um, because especially like denominationally, like the Church of Christ is very uh old school. Like they don't
Mm,
use instruments, they don't clap.
mm,
Um, so like it's very hard to retain the youth.
hmm. Mm,
And so Miles Monroe's church was a lot more forward thinking, and they had, like youth church,
mm.
they had a band.
And you
Um,
being a musician, I'm sure that appealed to you.
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. At the time, I was just kind of like rapping and producing at the time. I hadn't really dabbled in a lot of
So if you
instruments.
had grown up with Church of Christ with none of those kind of peripheral, bells and whistles, did you like not even know that you could have that kind of stuff in church?
I had no idea. We thought that every other denomination was doing it wrong.
So when you went to Miles Monroe's church, you were probably like, what the, like,
Yeah. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I get like, I knew that other churches did it differently.
mm-hmm,
And I didn't really feel any one way about it. I was like, I
mm-hmm,
don't really know that, this is wrong.
okay,
So it was just kind of a new experience and new
mm-hmm,
enough for me to latch onto it. You know what I'm
mm-hmm,
saying?
yeah,
Um, and I did that for a few years until uh I experienced, how can I say,
Mm,
church leadership is just as human as anybody else.
mm,
You know what I'm saying? With all their misgivings.
mm,
Um, and me being somebody who had like dropped out of school
mm,
and was kind of this roughneck, I wasn't part of the clique that like grew up in that church.
mm,
And that was very much felt.
mm,
And so I kind of just like
mm.
I kind of just like went out and did my own thing. You know what I'm saying?
Now, why were you? I know you said your mother switched churches, but as you're getting older, an older teen, why did you go too?
At that time, I was in it. You know,
Okay,
I was actually in it. I was actually like of my own volition
got you.
interested.
Okay.
Uh, I was on the drama team. Like they threw yearly conferences called Youth
Mm.
Alive, where they kind of mixed. You've probably heard of that.
No, well, Youth Alive is the name of the youth group of the church that I was at when I was a teenager. So that's why I'm laughing.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But and they still throw Youth Alive
Mm.
today. Like there's still Youth Alive
Okay.
going. But yeah, so they kind of mixed like there's a lot of like gospel Caribbean artists that come through,
Hmm.
and some from the United States, and um they mix like music with like preaching with like theater,
Hmm.
um in kind of like this 3-day weekend of like
Hmm. Yeah.
just trying to get people saved.
Hmm.
And that was cool to me. I met a very good friend of mine who taught me how to act,
Hmm.
kind of showed me what discipline looked like as far as the
Hmm.
arts was concerned. Like we would do these crazy long sessions of like rehearsal and
Hmm.
analyzing film and
Hmm.
all this crazy stuff.
Hmm.
Um, and really, I would say I was probably more drawn to that.
Okay.
You know what I'm
Now you
saying?
used the term, you said they were doing this 3-day event, just trying to get people saved. What did you think about the idea of needing to be saved? Did you even at that time, I know you said you were in it, but did you think that A, you were saved, and if so, what was the danger? Like, what were you saved from? Like, were you even at that time? How did you think about those ideas?
That's a good question. So some churches, I will say, like realize the utility in
Hmm.
not just preaching about like being saved from hell,
Mm-hmm.
but being saved from like maybe your own decisions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there was
Good.
like some practical
That's
advice.
good. And
Um,
and I think that was one of Miles Monroe's big things was basically
exactly,
giving you the life God, sort of like a life coach before there were life coaches.
exactly. Yep, yep.
And so I could see the idea of being saved almost being eclipsed by like the spiritual version being eclipsed by just the natural being saved from your bad choices with your finances or
Yeah,
marrying the wrong person kind of a thing.
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, there was a lot of his teaching kind of revolved around he called it kingdom culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, and I want to say that it kind of originated with Oral Roberts,
Mm.
and the Oral Roberts University. But anyways, uh, yeah, so a lot of his teaching kind of revolved around like practical life advice
Mm-hmm.
and kind of like marrying it to the scripture.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, like for a misguided teen,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying, with not a lot of sense on my head at the time.
Mm.
It was definitely something I appreciate.
If
Even
nothing
now,
else, it was saving you from yourself,
absolutely.
even if,
Yep.
if the concept of hell wasn't looming as large.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Gotcha.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then let me see. So after that I went to college in West Virginia. The
Hmm.
college at the time was called Ohio Valley University. It's no longer a college now.
So as a high school dropout, how do you get enrolled in college?
So, all right. Kind of skipping a lot because like the story
Yeah.
is, you know, like miles
This is
long.
called life after faith, but I'm really interested in people's lives. Like, how did your life
Like,
go? So,
how did your life lead
yeah,
you to faith, and then how did that lead you to leaving faith, right?
exactly.
Yeah, so I have an aunt and uncle who at the time lived in Connecticut. Uh,
Mm,
she's a doctor, and he was doing his PhD.
mm,
Um, so he went to UConn, and uh, I wanted to go to audio engineering school. Um, that didn't pan out. I was gonna do it in Connecticut so that I could
mm,
have like, family around.
mm,
That didn't pan out. And so my aunt, she was like, why don't you just like get your GED? Like,
mm.
I was like, yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay.
So I did. Turns out I wasn't, the idiot I was pretending to be.
I love
Um,
that. Yeah.
and I got I want to say like the highest GED scores in the state like ever.
Mm, mm,
Um, like perfect on the writing, like 90 something percentile in most of them. I think math was the only one I didn't do like hella well in because
mm.
who likes math, to be honest, right? But it was enough to get me a few scholarships, and
Mm.
the scholarship that was most attractive was the one at Ohio Valley University.
Cool.
And I went there for about a year.
Mm,
Um, decided college wasn't for me,
mm.
and went back to the Bahamas for a couple years.
You want a full scholarship?
Half.
Okay.
Half tuition. It was a private Christian college, so it
Mm.
was very expensive.
Okay. Mm.
And yeah, I was like, yeah, this college isn't for me. This is expensive. Like, let's not waste this money.
So let's help somebody out here. While you're in college for that year, what was happening with you and God at that time as far as you were concerned?
Yeah, at that point, I had already kind of like moved away from the faith a little bit.
Mm.
I was getting to be an adult.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And yeah, like college parties,
At a
going to
Christian
clubs.
college?
Oh, come on, man. Come on, man. What's that saying? Like isn't it like the more you tell people not to do something, the more they do.
Mm,
So
mm,
like some of the stuff that would happen at our college would sound wilder
mm.
than stories I've heard from, like
From
like
regular secular colleges.
yeah, yeah. Um,
Mm,
like some kids were like getting it on in the commons area.
mm.
Like because like they what I'm saying, they didn't really have the freedom to do it. So
Were they having like chapels and trying to give you like
oh
spiritual instruction?
yeah, chapel was an everyday thing, mandatory.
That stuff was sort of just glancing off of you at that time, or what?
Yeah, I mean, I participated because it was kind of like a ritual I knew.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But like, it was just like, all right, whatever.
Mm,
It was- okay. Because like
okay.
In the
Hmm.
Bahamas, being a Christian country, I don't know if it's like this now. Still, I doubt it would have changed in the time that I've not been there. But um, at every morning assembly,
Mm,
there's prayer. We're singing worship songs.
mm,
Like, and this is at every school, whether it's private, public.
mm,
Um, so like that was kind of just all right, play the game. You know what
mm,
I'm saying? Um, after that, uh, I moved back home for a couple years and then moved to California. And while I was at home, definitely church was not like I was like, nah, this is not happening.
okay.
Uh,
But had you ever made any kind of like, even though you said you moved away from God at that time, was there any clear cut, like, was there a cutoff in your mind, like, that's not for me? Or was it just a distance that you thought you'd come back to it at some point? What was your thinking about?
it was definitely like a distance. I
Mm,
didn't know whether or not I like I wanted to go back. I know I wasn't really interested at the time. Like
okay.
there were people at the school that would invite me. Funny enough, all right, so yeah, there's people at the school that will invite me to church, and I'd be like, all right, maybe sometime, and
Mm,
and just keep putting it off. Uh, but yeah, no, I don't think I had plans to go back because like
mm,
I was really focused on music,
mm,
focused on like being a big rapper,
mm,
and like church is not synonymous with that. I
mm.
mean, not in the way that it could be now.
Hmm.
Um,
Had you been introduced to Christian hip hop at all in all that time?
Yeah, so I was introduced to Christian hip hop when I went to Miles Monroe's church.
Okay.
I met some kids and they showed me like Trip Lee,
Okay.
Ray. Um I think I may have heard some of your stuff. Um man, who was it? I think it's Ambassador.
Mm-hmm.
Um yeah, and that stuff like because of that youth culture that they cultivate, like that stuff was just playing all the time.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
And did
Um,
any of it get past your radar and make you think, oh, there's more to this God thing than I've been giving it credit for? Like, I didn't know it could be that culturally relevant, or was it
yeah,
not
yeah,
even? Okay.
yeah. So I kind of skipped over some stuff, but like in the Bahamas, like during that time when I was going to Miles Monroe's church, I was making like some Christian hip hop. That's kind
Oh,
of
okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And some of it is still online, even though
Oh,
I'd
wow.
like to get it down, but whatever. Um,
Okay.
uh,
Easter
yeah,
eggs now for everybody out there. You can go
yeah.
hunting for this old material.
Yo, if you want to hear 15, 16-year-old psionic, go looking for it. Go looking for it. You'll see it.
Okay.
But yeah, that was actually kind of like a light bulb moment because I was like, oh, like I can exist like as
Mm.
myself
Mm.
within this within the confines of this like this whole system.
Hmm.
I did that for a while, and then um, I want to say. What's crazy though is even after I walked away from like the church like at I want to say 18, 19, 20,
Mm.
um I still wouldn't cuss in my music,
Hmm.
you know? Like there was still this like sort of
Mm.
conviction
Hmm.
going on. So
Hmm.
like yeah, it's actually not until I want to say maybe in the last like 3, 4 years that I started actually
Really?
like, cussing in my music. Yeah, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I need a timeline now because you talk about walking away from church sort of around age 18.
Yeah.
So
At
within the
that
last,
time, at that time when I walked away, I didn't walk away because of like, oh, my eyes were open
got you.
to like the veracity of the claims of the Bible or anything
Mm.
like that. It was just kind of like I don't really like
Mm.
any church people because you're
Mm.
not really that much different from everybody else. So I'm
Mm.
just gonna at least hang around the people that don't claim they're not like this, you know? That was kind of where I was at.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh,
Sort of like Impossible Burgers. Like if you're gonna look like meat and try to taste like meat, I'm just gonna go have meat. I'm not gonna
yeah,
mess around
yeah,
with this Impossible Burger,
exactly,
Impossible Christianity.
exactly.
Um, okay, so you go to California.
Uh-huh. I went to California. I went there. I stayed there for like 3 months.
Mm.
I was doing like basically like an open mic tour,
Mm.
just trying to get my name out there. Um, and then my living situation kind of went south there with my friend, and that prompted me to move back to West Virginia because that's where I knew some folks.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, let's go back to West Virginia. Let's kind of figure it out, see what we can do. Um, and then I landed into an actual cult. Uh, I mean,
I didn't see that
personally,
coming.
personally, I think the whole thing's a cult, but like
Hmm.
this one, I think qualifies. And there are some people actually that I was
Mm.
talking to recently that still live there that were like, yeah, that place was a cult. Like
Oh.
it's a Pentecostal church
Hmm.
or charismatic. They go as non-denominational. Uh, very few black people.
Mm.
Uh, they
How
speak
did?
in tongues.
Okay.
They cast out demons.
Mm.
Uh, yeah. The way I found it, I was looking for a place to stay,
Hmm.
and one of my old contacts was like, "I know a place you can stay, but there's a catch." I was like, "What's the catch?" Like, you got to go to church. I was like, "Okay, how bad can it be?"
Okay.
Wrong question to ask.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
Um, turns out, yeah, like so the person I moved in with was like an outreach minister,
Mm.
and I shit you not, this person collected rappers who were mostly black. This was not a black person.
This sounds like Get Out.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Collected, for lack of a better term, broken young men, broken
Mm,
young black men, kind of looking for, validation for their music,
mm,
validation from a father figure. Um,
mm,
and we had this group, it was called Elevate. There might be traces of it on the internet still, but
mm,
yeah, we just kind of all lived in the house and we would travel on the weekends to different places around like West Virginia, some of the East Coast,
mm,
and minister via music. And
mm.
then, you know, we would do like altar calls at the end. Sometimes somebody would preach or whatever.
Now you're saying we, but you had walked away from all this. So how much are you a part of that we?
So look, I get to this church and like I'm feeling kind of lost because like I moved here to like be doing my music like
Mm,
and now I'm in kind of West Virginia like
mm,
don't know what I'm gonna do. My computer at the time was not working. I lost all my music on there
mm.
and so like being in that kind of I wouldn't even say depressed, but for lack of a better word, but being in that mental state,
Yeah.
I was very susceptible to an altar,
Mm, mm.
if that makes
You
sense.
said to an altar call.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. So
And is this altar call? There's different kinds of altar calls. There are ones that play on your emotions. Come receive the love of God. Come be a part of the family. There's some that do the spiritual side of it. Of you need to be cleansed. Come get your sins forgiven. Do you remember what kind of altar call it was? Like what was it that made you say, "Yeah, I need this"?
I can't even remember.
Okay.
I can't even remember.
But you had
I
a
just,
felt need, and this altar call seemed to meet
yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, at that point I just kind of went gung ho
Mm,
and just threw myself into it.
hmm
And yeah, so
mm.
I stayed with that church for about 6 years.
Wow. So you're traveling, doing these mission trips or whatever they are.
Yeah, the long
You,
story short, yeah, like to different churches, sometimes like outreach in the street. Like we even went to like Times Square and just like rapped at people.
so you're writing evangelistic raps
Absolutely.
to
Yeah, we
save
all were.
people.
Mm.
I don't know if I'm asking this too many different ways, too many times, we can just move on. But I'm just trying to get a sense of to what degree in your soul would you say, and I'm using even the term soul is a little bugged out, but
Or like within
in your
myself.
inners, yeah, to what degree did you believe what you were saying?
I mean, at the time I was convinced.
Okay.
At the time I was convinced. And yeah, I mean, I was like I said, I was just gung ho. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Um,
You thought
and
people would go to hell if they didn't believe what
oh
you believe.
yeah, oh yeah, oh
And
absolutely.
Jesus was the way out of that hell.
Absolutely. Like this is a fire and brimstone church.
Mm.
They do preach the love of God, but then they
Hmm.
also preach that God is a jealous God and
Okay.
his will not be mocked and his wrath will only stay for so long and
Mm.
you know, you know.
Were you reading your Bible,
Yeah, yeah.
enjoying it, or was it a chore?
Depends on the day.
Okay. That's
Depends on
honest.
the day. Depends on the day. Like, cause me, like, I'm a artist, so I'm very
Hmm.
visual, and so a lot
Mm.
of the really fantastical stuff in the Bible was capturing to me. Like I loved Revelation because it was just full of so much imagery.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I, yeah, I wrote a song called Seven, and it was about like the seven
Mm.
seals, the trumpets, and it was like a 5 minute long song.
Mm.
Yeah. So yeah, I love that kind of stuff. And then like Samson like fighting off 100 dudes with the
Mm.
jawbone of a donkey. I was like, that sounds dope as hell. Like somebody needs to make a movie. I'd probably still watch it if somebody made it just to see that happen.
Okay.
But
Mm.
uh yeah, man, I was definitely in there.
Hmm. How
And
did you know, or at what? I don't want to jump ahead if you don't want to jump ahead, but I'm curious, how do you begin to realize that this is a cult?
Okay, so at the very least, about
I'm sorry, real quick, just in your Christian experience with this cult, you're reading your Bible. It's a chore sometimes, but you're also interested in some things. What's your prayer life like?
every day for sure.
Okay,
Um, we were encouraged to pray in tongues all the time.
speaking in tongues.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Did you think that you really were speaking in like it was a
Nah,
spiritual thing?
to be honest, no.
Hmm.
Like, uh,
Hmm.
like the way it was explained to me, by like one of the leaders there was
Hmm.
like, I'm gonna pray, you're gonna hear it, and I'm gonna pray for the Holy Spirit to fill you,
Hmm.
and just move your tongue and make noises.
Hmm.
And I mean, that's not hard to do for anybody.
So
You
you
can
grew
make
up in the
a
Bahamas where it was sort of that kind of stuff was going on, but you never spoke in tongues before this church.
no. Yeah. Yep.
Did
Yep.
you think it was real before, like when you were in the Bahamas or when you were in other church?
I had heard of it, but
Mm,
in the way that it was explained to me in like at Miles Monroe's church was that it
mm.
was kind of a rare thing and not necessarily
Okay.
something for everybody to be able to do.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. So now you get here and they're like,
Mm,
no, this is what we do.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
Because like they were very strict on like um that Acts scripture, like they will speak in, different
mm,
tongues. The Holy
mm,
Spirit will come on them with power. They
mm,
will cast out demons in my name and da 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 da. Very strong on that
mm.
kind of stuff. And yeah, I mean, I could still do it now because it's not like it's
You have to practice.
like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're speaking gibberish. Anybody can speak gibberish.
And well, now I faked the tongues for maybe a month or two when I was a new Christian. And I didn't think I was fake. I knew I was faking, but I didn't think I was faking, if that makes sense.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I knew I was manufacturing the syllables, but I was hoping that at some point, what I was seeing other people do, I was hoping that the Spirit of God would kick in and take over and pick up where I left off.
If I can make an insight or speculation, I think everybody's faking it.
Hmm,
I think everybody's faking it.
hmm,
Uh, like so being a part of that church for so long, I was being mentored by the deliverance guy.
hmm.
So this is the main guy you go to when you want to. What just happened? I
We're not
think.
even live. I don't know how we got balloons.
Uh, but yeah, so this is the main deliverance guy. This is the guy you go to and you want something cast out or
Hmm,
he was mentoring me
hmm,
and um so suffice it to say I've seen what it looks like and I don't believe anybody,
hmm,
honestly.
hmm.
I don't.
Okay.
Can you make yourself gag?
Hmm,
Absolutely.
hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
uh can you shake violently and pretend that you're not hearing the call and the calls of the people around you?
Hmm,
Absolutely.
hmm,
And then knowing these people also like in community
hmm,
and knowing that these people are kind of like attention seeking individuals,
hmm.
it's not hard to put two and two together.
Wow. Wow. You said you
Yeah.
saw it up close and personal, which means so while he's mentoring you and you're peeping everything, they don't even necessarily know that even though you're inside, you're looking at it with an outsider's perspective.
Yeah.
So you're
Yep.
not there just taking it all in uncritically.
Right.
You're running it through your grid of,
Right.
even while you're there doing it all.
Right. Right.
Wow.
What's interesting is even like part of the mentorship was him showing me like, okay, like that's definitely somebody like faking it, you know?
Ah, so even they thought they had their peepers on
Sure.
of, they could discern what was real and what wasn't.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So this person's faking it, this person's really possessed, and you're looking at them like they're both faking it.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's
And I mean,
crazy.
like
Mm,
I like my best friend, we would pray for each other and
mm,
like you'd vomit. But like
mm.
it's really easy to induce
Yeah,
vomiting.
yeah,
Actually
yeah.
really,
Get yourself worked up and
yeah.
switch up your breathing and
Yeah, you just ate. What do you mean?
yeah. And you
Yeah,
guys are doing this, but you at least some of them are doing it because for them it's confirming their belief system.
exactly. Right.
But for
So,
you, it's not confirming anything.
well, so as part of the mentorship, like, okay, like some of these signs, like
Mm-hmm.
vomiting, coughing, convulsions, um,
Mm,
what's the other one? Like violent swearing, so to
mm-hmm.
speak.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, like
Mm,
those are some of the signs of like that somebody has a spirit that's manifesting, quote, so to speak. Um,
mm, mm, mm.
yeah, but like if you if you just take a step back
Yeah.
and you let's say you're not you don't have a dog in the fight.
Mm-hmm. Mm, mm, mm.
Yeah, yeah, it falls
That's
apart.
amazing. That's because I know this is going to help so many people who are watching this because there are people who do have a dog in the fight and they're so close into it they can't see. But I think what these episodes do is they allow it's almost like a mirror where people can look and say, "Wait, is that what I look like?
Yeah,
Am I possibly doing what they?" Hmm. It allows them to step outside by
yeah.
putting on the glasses that you're looking at it through.
I hope
That's
so, man.
that's great.
Uh, yeah. So, um, all the while, like this is my mentor in the church, but like as
Mm,
far as the outreach ministry is concerned, the
mm.
leader of that turned out to be a very manipulative.
I'm
Uh,
sorry. I'm sorry. One last thing. You're praying, you're speaking in tongues, you're questioning whether or not this is really a spiritual language. You think maybe it's not. The other side of prayer is God talking to you. Did you feel like God was speaking to you during this time?
yeah. So, okay, here is something I think. I don't. I can't put my thumb on it, like if it's intentional or not.
Mm,
But the way that you are trained to recognize God speaking to you
hmm
is very much like
mm.
having thoughts.
What do you
And
mean? Say more about that.
well, okay, so like I can be sitting here and you can mention any string of words that would conjure up a memory of mine I hadn't thought about in a long time,
Mm,
or
mm,
some part of my imagination could go off.
hmm
And it's very easy for me to run with that and somehow, some way try to like weave that into something meaningful
hmm
about what we're speaking about.
hmm
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, and especially in a church like this, like
Mm,
so like speaking in tongues, casting out demons, also like prophetic words, like
mm,
from the Lord kind of
hmm
thing.
hmm
Um, and a lot of times, like it's just your imagination, dude.
hmm
Just like, and again, like attention seeking,
hmm
it's easy to
Mm,
sit there and try to conjure up the most fantastical prophetic word you've ever heard,
mm,
string of images that you've ever heard.
mm,
Um, say the right things to get people's emotions.
mhm,
Like, it's not rocket science.
mm,
It's really just not rocket science.
mm,
You know what I'm saying? Uh, Anybody who has a good grasp on how people work, especially in large groups,
mhm,
you can read a room
mm.
like,
Yeah,
yeah, like psychics exist.
exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mentalists, as they call them.
Mentalists, yeah,
Yeah.
like this
Hmm.
isn't, yeah, yeah. But when you walk into that church and you see the legitimacy of the greeters at the door
Mm,
and the band is playing that music real good,
hmm
and you start thinking about your grandma who used to take you to church or what, like
mm,
you're not thinking critically. You're
mm,
not. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
you're just not.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Uh, they love bomb you,
Mm-hmm.
they guilt trip you,
Mm.
and then you're
Mm.
just ripe for manipulation.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
said they love bomb you and guilt trip you, and it makes you right for manipulation.
Yeah.
That's excellent. One of the things that I tell people who are convinced that God speaks to them, Jesus speaks to them, I just simply ask, is it possible that we've been trained, we who are religious, we've been trained to interpret our inner monologue as a dialogue?
Exactly.
How often do you have contrary thoughts? It's nothing to turn that contrary thought into oh, I wouldn't have thought that. That must have been God saying that. No, that's
Right.
just you having two minds about something.
Right.
But you've personified the other side of your mind. Well, I knew that couldn't be me because I wouldn't have said such and such. You can argue with yourself.
Yes, you can.
And if you
Absolutely.
fill your mind with Bible verses, well, now I used this analogy on this program before, but in creating this audiobook that I'm working on, I've had to train the AI to say things like me.
Mm,
But I have to give the AI software a good sample of what I sound like. Well, in the same way, I think the believer is training the AI of God in their mind.
absolutely.
And your AI gets trained better and better to sound like God the more you read that Bible, the more you listen to preaching.
Exactly.
You're
Exactly.
training that
Like
voice in your head to sound like what the God of the Bible would sound like.
exactly. Exactly. Like one of their like I guess I don't know, like coaching uh or one of their teachings was that like any prophecy that comes forth, like it cannot or it shouldn't. How do you know it's God?
Hmm.
And and the way to know is that it doesn't go against like anything in the Bible.
Hmm.
So it's like, okay, here's the rule set.
Exactly. This is
It's
what the
like
God voice of my head needs to sound like.
dirt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like like you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm,
There's just a lot of necessary
mm,
like I call it like thought terminating cliches, they're called,
mm.
where you're kind of forced to not think too deeply about something
Yeah.
or begins
Yeah.
to fall apart.
Mm.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Sorry. So you're there. You're on the inside, but you're sort of peeking from the outside and scrutinizing it while you're in there. Spoiler alert. I'm jumping ahead, but trying to tie it all together.
Yeah.
Does your leaving the faith altogether come as a result of this place, or do you leave this place but still remain in the faith?
Yeah. So I left that place, but still remain in the faith.
Okay.
So like I didn't think all that was crazy yet. Like
Mm-hmm.
at this point, even though I'm like peeping this stuff, to me in the moment, I'm thinking, okay, this is just my analytic brain.
Mm.
Like this is just how I process the world.
Okay.
Like I can't help but just observe and analyze,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so long story short, we come to find out that the leader of the group that we travel with um essentially like was just using us like
Mm.
for his own like emotional needs.
Mm.
And essentially like trying to make himself look good for the church leadership because he
Wow.
wanted more power in the church.
Mm.
Uh and so we kind of like
Mm.
figured that out and stopped doing that group
Mm-hmm.
and eventually moved from West Virginia to Columbus, Ohio, where we went to the sister branch of that church.
When you say
Uh,
we, who's the we?
so my best friend and I,
Mm-hmm.
uh, we left there, came here, and started going to that church,
Mm-hmm.
uh, the sister church up here,
Mm.
and enter other manipulative leader, but this time he's the pastor of the church.
So wait,
And
wait, wait. What are you doing with your life at this point? Are you working? Like, is it
yeah,
just,
working. Yeah. You know, we got jobs, living life, whatever.
but the jobs were not so important that you couldn't move to a whole other state?
Well, we when we moved here, we didn't have jobs, and then we found jobs here.
Okay.
We like we worked in the oil and gas industry in West Virginia, and
Mm,
they suffered like a bust in early 2015,
mm.
and so I lost my job there
Okay.
uh, completely, and um, there was a whole other side quest with another actually like fairly famous gospel musician
Mm,
um, where we were also treated like
mm,
not great.
mm,
Um, so we figured out like really quickly there. We spent like maybe 5 months there. Like, okay, this is
mm,
this is kind of bullshit.
mm,
And so we ended up moving to Columbus to go to the sister church, and there we stayed for like another 3 years.
mm.
And
Still doing any kind
um,
of ministry or no?
yeah, so we went from doing like music ministry to like essentially being like youth pastors there at that
Mm,
church. So we were in church leadership there because, we, as far as it goes, we had a pretty good track record with the
mm,
leadership in
mm.
in the church body. So two young men, they were eager to kind of throw us into
Yeah.
like leadership. So I was running sound. We were doing the youth pastor thing, and then
Mm.
like the able-bodied young men we were helping people move whenever it.
Was this a small church?
Smallish, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I want to
Wow.
say like maybe 100, 150,
Mm,
you know, recurring members all the time.
mm,
Um, and I went through some stuff. Uh, I want to say like in the last 2 years, like year and a half at that church.
mm,
I ended up living at the church,
mm,
trading like maintenance services for rent.
mm,
And so I was literally at church all the time,
mm,
running sound. Uh, what else did I do? I can't remember. I was
mm,
running sound. Um, we did the youth pastor thing. We kind of transitioned out of that after a while. I was teaching middle school kids on like Sundays.
mm,
Um, and then like we also had like prayer on every like Saturday. So
mm.
yeah, like church was life at that point. Um,
Dating? Anything like along the lines of
dated around,
mm,
um, but like nothing ever really got serious.
mm. Were you
Um,
looking for like your godly wife or kind of thing? Like
absolutely.
okay.
Yep. Yep. Looking for a godly wife.
Mm,
And unfortunately, our church did not have a large amount of single young women.
mm.
Uh, so I was just kind of like,
And in true cult fashion, was it like stick with the people in our denomination, or did you feel like you could go outside of your church to find?
no, I was definitely like a marry within the tribe kind of
Wow.
type joint. Yeah.
With
Yeah.
not a lot of options.
Not a lot of options. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Mm,
And I was just like, if these are the options, I'm gonna wait.
damn.
Yeah.
That's
I dated a few young women, but
mm,
they never went too far. Uh,
hmm.
yeah. And
You
then,
don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but it will matter depending on if you answer and how you answer. Were
sure.
you being faithful like to the sexual purity standards
Yeah.
of?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Actually, so I'm in a relationship now.
Mm,
I've been in this relationship now for about a year, a
mm,
little bit more than a year, and for a while, like I didn't realize that that did a number on me
mm,
and kind of repressed a lot of my sexuality.
mm.
Uh, yeah, and I had to work through that.
So here you are out of the church, out of the faith even, still wrestling with things that the faith put on you in terms of how you practice your sexuality.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
crazy. It's
yeah.
crazy.
I don't think so anymore. Like at the moment,
Right.
like I had to figure that out. But
Trust me, that was a big part of my deconversion.
I bet, I bet, because like, bro, like it's a long time, and
Hmm.
like your mind. I don't think people understand like the way that your mind is so malleable and is able to be wired a certain way.
Mm,
You feed. the thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I think people take it for granted that
Hmm.
that things can affect you uh for a long time after.
Well, the reason why I asked is because the people who are looking at these episodes trying to judge whether or not you were saved enough for them
Right, 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 right.
to
Were
count
you
your
really a
deconversion.
Christian? Did you really believe?
Right. Well,
Yeah.
one of the ways that they might put the stones in their hands down that they're ready to throw at you is when they see how seriously you took these
Oh
convictions.
yeah. Yeah,
And so to
man.
see that you took it even to your sexual ethics, like you don't do that if you're not truly trying to please God and follow this thing. And if you don't truly believe, you're not going through the motions to get a rap career or whatever. You believe
Yeah.
this at your core, so much so that
Yeah.
it became part of your
Yeah.
worldview and how you saw things even sexually.
I put like music is genuinely my first love. Like
Mm.
I think without it I would be a depressed individual, but I put music down because I thought God wanted me to
Mm.
preach. And
Wait,
I
wait, so
thought
say more about that. How did you get that impression that that's what God wanted?
so well, we were doing the youth pastor thing, and I was kind of like feeling more led to do that.
Mm.
And I remember realizing that I loved music so much that there's no way it
Mm.
wasn't an idol.
Mm.
And I was like, if it's an idol, I'm just gonna stop.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, that's what I mean when I talk about that internal monologue. We
Yep.
interpret it as a dialogue because now the what you're reading, you think about Abraham being called to sacrifice his son, and the way
Exactly.
the way Christians justify that is God wanted Abraham to detach his heart from this promised son and love God more. So you all that informs your inner monologue,
Yeah.
and then here you go interpreting that as what do I love that much? Music. And
Hmm.
now you hear the voice of God telling
Hmm.
you to put music down, to
Yep. And
sacrifice your gift.
to another point, my devotion was so real that I had a mentor like when I was dating one of the young ladies I was talking to.
Mm,
He said, if you love her,
hmm
you, you won't kiss her.
mm,
And and we never kissed after that.
mm,
Yeah. So like, I mean, say what you will about, me leaving the faith, but I was pretty sure I was
yeah.
I was sold out. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
I was pretty sure I was sold out. I mean, and
Yeah.
again, like there's a scripture that says like
Mm,
whenever you pray, don't be like the Pharisees who pray in front of people. Don't let
mm,
your left hand know what your right hand is doing. I
mm,
would go out and like spend my own money and buy shit like oh, what are those things? Like the weatherproof sleeping bags and just find random homeless people and just give them a sleeping bag and get them some food.
mm,
No, nobody knew this. Like I would just
mm,
go on my own time and do this
mm,
shit.
mm.
Um, and yeah, like just like yeah, you can't really tell me that that like I
Right.
wasn't about this life,
That your
bro.
heart wasn't pumping it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. So now you're at this church. You're transitioning from youth ministry to now you're living there. You're helping to maintain things.
Yeah.
How does the wheels fall off?
The wheels fall off because like as I'm living there, I'm getting really depressed. I'm like, man, I'm like 20 something years old. I live at a church. Um, this is not how I expected my life to look like.
Hmm.
And to be honest, I feel like this is the first time I really like experienced depression
Hmm.
and nobody know. Nobody knew.
Hmm.
Nobody knew. And I was like, is the Holy Spirit not speaking to any of you about my condition?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Uh yeah, there was a situation where like I didn't have work and you know, uh my body showed that I didn't have work.
Hmm.
And instead of, are you okay? I go, oh wow, you look good. And yeah, I was just like, all right, so
Hmm.
out of the 100, 150 of y'all here, like what
mm,
what like, and yeah, I never stopped praying for quite some time. Like even in my depressed state, like I prayed all the time. I prayed out loud, I prayed in tongues.
mm,
Um and one day I just stopped.
mm,
I just stopped. I was like, what if I stop praying?
mm. Come on.
And nothing changed.
Yo, bro.
And I was like,
Mm.
what? I was confused.
Mm,
Like
mm,
I was like, so what have I been doing this for?
mm.
If
Well, what did you think might change?
I didn't know.
Okay.
I didn't know.
Mm,
Um, a lot a lot of times like prayer is kind of considered like the cord between you and God, like the communication cable, right?
mm,
Um, and
mm,
like, bro, nobody knew.
mm,
Nobody had any idea. And uh yeah, I was just kind of like, if me not praying is not really doing anything, then what was praying doing?
mm,
And like I kind of realized that a lot of the downloads that I got from God, as
mm,
far as like talking to me about me, was
mm,
myself.
mm. So if prayer was the link between you and God, you figure if I stop this, maybe that link would be cut off, but you were still getting the internal
Yes,
messages, but now you're like, if God's not sending those messages, then it must just be
who
me.
it must just be me. Right,
Okay.
right, right. And
Hmm. Hmm.
not long after that, some other stuff went down between my homie and the leaders there, and um, it was egregious enough to where we were like, all right, like we didn't leave the church immediately
Hmm.
because right, like there's a whole idea around like, oh, you get offended in church and you leave God, and so we were like, nah, we're not those people. We're gonna stay
Hmm.
right here, and we
Hmm.
gonna, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And we were there for a grip until like just kept escalating, and it was like, all right, this is just not healthy. And so
Hmm.
we left and we went to another church. We didn't even walk away from God. Um,
Outside of the denomination?
outside of that specific like family of churches, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we found another like Pentecostal church, but
Gotcha.
and we went there for a while.
Hmm.
And I'm sitting in this little Pentecostal church, and all the while, like this is where I'm like learning photography and
Hmm.
filmmaking. And I am again not praying
Hmm.
and still getting clients, still
Hmm.
doing really well,
Hmm.
you know. And I'm like, okay, like
Hmm.
so my success isn't tied to my spirituality?
Hmm.
Interesting. This is interesting.
And were they still giving you credit for being spiritual?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, how can I say it? Like, I didn't say much at
Hmm.
this point. Now I'm just kind of like a kind of an observer,
Hmm.
watching to see like what bullshit the next guy is on.
Hmm.
And I think that's maybe more of what they picked up on rather than
Hmm.
like, so to them it was like, oh, this guy's got discernment. Rather,
Rather than
so
he's a critical thinker, rather than
yeah,
he's a, skeptical mind, he's got
yeah,
discernment.
yeah,
Now, had you told your homeboy what you were on?
yeah. So, we experienced our deconstruction separately,
Mm,
but like still in community with each other, and
mm-hmm,
like I knew that I was on the way out, but I would
mm,
never like push that on him.
mm-hmm,
I didn't even talk to him about it until he started having his questions because he was trying to
mm.
hold on to it for a lot longer than I was.
Wow.
And I was like, like I'm not gonna try and influence him
Mm-hmm,
out of this because like
mm-hmm,
that's his choice to make, you know what I mean? And I don't want
mm,
to be that guy
yeah.
that that's just like, okay, like now I don't go to church now everybody doesn't eat, like, you know.
Mm,
Um and so I came to my conclusion a lot earlier than he did. And then
mm.
finally he was like, man, I've been watching some stuff, I've been reading some stuff. And I was like, yeah, like that's kind of where I'm at. You know what I mean?
So,
Um,
but you're in it and you're just peeping the BS, saying this must not really be, I'm still successful. The things I would have prayed for, I didn't pray for, and they're still happening. These people are calling me spiritual, thinking I've got discernment when I'm just naturally existing. And at what point well, your friend said he had been reading and checking out some things. Did you look at any outside things that helped you sort of make sense of it all, or were you just doing the deduction on your own?
I mean, a little bit of both.
Mm,
I didn't even start watching videos for a while. I was just kind of like looking at like evidence for like the Bible and
hmm
like the claims of the Bible.
mm,
And I was like, okay, like when I stopped praying and like nothing changed,
mm,
it really opened up a lot of questions for me. It was like, okay, like
mm,
if nothing changed, like yeah, just I was just kind of like really, really focused on like trying to figure out if this book was even like
mm,
true. I
mm,
was like, I never actually looked at the extra biblical evidence
hmm
for why the Bible should be believed.
mm. You just took it for
Um,
granted.
yeah, I just took it for granted, quite
Mm,
literally. I took it like, I mean, like I said, I grew up in a Christian society.
mm,
You know, even if I
mm.
like the most heathen individual in a Christian society still believes in God.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They
Yeah.
might be doing what they doing, but like
Mm.
at the end of the day, if you tell them like God's not real, they'd be like, "What are you crazy?" But anyways, yeah. So I just started looking at like evidence of evolution and
Mm.
like, did the flood happen?
Mm.
Is there evidence for the flood? Is there evidence like have we found giant bones? Like,
Mm.
you know what I mean?
Mm.
And it just kept coming up wanting and wanting and
Mm.
wanting. And I don't know that I can like really even believe this anymore.
Mm.
You know? And then we came across you. Uh,
Oh.
yeah, and you
In my
dropped your book.
deconverted state?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
And you dropped
wow.
your book. And we were freaking out because we were like, bro, like
Mm.
this is like this is like a titan. And you know what I mean?
Mm.
And so we just kind of started like watching your progress, dude, and like we were there like for your book to drop, and we read that, and we saw like the Genesis thing,
Mm.
and I was like, man, like this shit just doesn't hold water.
Mm.
None of it holds water.
Mm.
Um, and then like I read what's the guy? Josh Bowen, Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Bowen.
Mm-hmm.
I read his Atheist Guide to
To the
the
Old
Atheist Canon of
Testament?
the Bible. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, because
Mm.
you when you are a Bible believing Christian, right? You read past things like
Mm.
Leviticus and Exodus.
Yeah.
They don't even occur to you how
Mm.
terrible the things that God
Mm.
is
Mm.
commanding these people to do are,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah.
Uh, and I was like, wait a minute. Even
Mm.
if God is real, this is wild.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
This is actually really wild. And for a long time, I was like, okay, I don't really know if God is real or not, but if he is, like,
Mm.
I mean, obviously, I have to believe in him if he's real, but like,
Right.
I don't know if I would worship him
Mm.
because, like, you mean to tell me you have the wherewithal and the foresight and the omniscience
Mm.
to determine what threads we wear in our
Mm.
clothes, but you can't not one time
Mm.
a single time say, hey, maybe you shouldn't own a human being
And pass them down like property to your children.
and like you may own them as property.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, man, like I was
Mm,
just done at that point. I was just
mm,
like, it's just like intellectually, morally, none of this makes sense. I can't do it.
mm.
I, yeah,
So
you
that's a
know,
recent thing then for you to get to the point of this, I can't do this at all.
couple years, yeah,
Couple
yeah,
years.
like years maybe. What is it, 24?
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Because you know what? Another one of the things that sparked my ire was the evangelical response to George Floyd,
Mm. Okay.
and uh, like I said, like in West Virginia, it was a mostly white church,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Mm.
and in Columbus, it wasn't mostly white, but it was whitewashed.
Got you.
So
Nice.
very conservative in their politics
Mm-hmm.
and very white supremacist sympathetic,
Mm. Mm.
even if not explicitly,
Mm.
very implicitly.
At a black church. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
And so with your with your outsider insider perspective, you're seeing that like, what am
Yeah,
I doing here?
yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. This doesn't
Mm.
make. I don't care. Like,
Mm.
real or not, I can't be a
Mm.
part of it.
Mm.
Can't be a part of it. Like,
Wow.
yeah. I was like, there's absolutely no way that this God is good
Mm.
to allow shit like this to happen and not intervene.
Wow. So you're seeing all this, it's not adding up, at least for the Bible's depiction of God. Do you go from that to atheism? Do you go from that to agnosticism?
Well, so there was a brief, maybe I want to say 2 week period, man, when I was like, okay, like what kind of religions did my ancestors
Mm.
look at?
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of looked at that for a while, and then I just decided I was like, you know what? Like I'm not
Mm.
really interested in anything mystical.
Mm.
And it was there where me and my friend we coined the phrase the radical acceptance of reality.
Mm.
Uh, yeah, and like all that is to say I accept reality as I see it, as we can understand it,
Mm.
use tools that we have,
Mm.
and I refuse to make up anything in the gaps.
Mm.
That's it.
Beautiful.
That's it.
Beautiful. So unless or until a God presents itself as part of your reality, you're not beholden to the idea. You don't have to accept, you don't even have to entertain it. It's not
Oh,
part of the reality that you live in.
oh,
And somebody's claim that, oh, but he did present himself. See here in this book. That's you're not beholden to that.
oh.
Got you.
Because look, if the book's veracity itself
Mm.
is in high amounts of question. I mean,
Mm.
biblical scholars agree that Jesus might have existed.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like we know that there was a few mentions of him
Mm.
in passing in these
Mm.
documents, by the way.
Mm.
Um, then all we have to go off is the Bible, which also claims that a snake talked, which also
Mm.
claimed that a donkey talked,
Mm.
which also claimed that giants had sex with, or sorry, that angels had sex with humans and
Mm.
made giants,
Right.
which also claims that there was a global flood, which there's no geological evidence
Mm.
for, which also, like, you know what I'm saying? So a
Gotcha.
virgin birth,
Mm.
like, I'm like, no, like,
Mm.
I, like, yeah.
Yeah. Here's how Christianity ruined me and made me an atheist, because I could have just became an unbeliever in the Christian God. But Christianity did such a good job of convincing me that if there is a God, he would reveal itself and he
Mm,
would reach out to me. He would pursue me.
yeah,
So I said, okay, that's what gods do. They don't just make worlds, they communicate with those worlds and then they pursue those people.
yeah,
Well, once I get to the point of saying, oh, but the Christian God didn't do that then because he doesn't exist. Now I have to look around and say, okay, well, then what God did communicate and pursue? No other God has. So if no other God has done what I believe a God would do,
right,
communicate and pursue me, then why should I think a God exists?
right,
I'm left with nothing other
right,
than the other thing you told me that gods do. They create things. I'm like, well, could it just be that we're not smart enough yet to even imagine a better hypothesis than and all powerful, omniscient. Anytime you put omnis into your cause, well, of course that cause can create this because you've made it omni.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you filled in the gap with this omni being that could do anything. I'm
Yeah.
like, nah, I don't know that God was the best hypothesis. Maybe it was then.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to be looking for a new one now.
Yeah. And man, it sounds so much like at the Sandlot playing with some kids
Hmm.
and you're following the rules and then you win. And so the kid that started the game was like, well, I make a new rule. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, okay,
Hmm.
like moving the goalpost. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying?
Hmm.
And every time we go deeper into our understanding of reality, the goalpost of, well, what you still don't understand, that's where God's at. And it's
Hmm.
like that area is getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That area is getting smaller and smaller, which means God is getting smaller and smaller. Um, I guess the question becomes, so you get to this point where you say, I think I'm off even the whole God talk, because it sounds like you moved to atheism, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
The
Yeah.
radical acceptance of reality. What changed when you excluded or deleted your need to employ God to explain things? What changed? Did your world get darker? Did your depression grow stronger? Did a dark cloud come and follow you around and like
For a little
like
bit, for a
mm,
little bit, I experienced some depression. I
mm.
actually had to God.
Say it
Uh,
again?
I had to mourn God.
Mm.
Because
Wow.
for the whole entire, you know, my entire experience with Christianity, and you can let me know if this was yours, like you said, was of this God pursuing you, this being that
Mm-hmm.
loves you, beyond anything your mind can fathom,
Mm.
and
Has a plan for you.
has a plan for you,
Yeah.
formed you in your mother's womb,
Mm-hmm.
saved you from that car crash.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's the reason you're friends with this guy now.
Mm.
Like a lot of a lot of ways to kind of confirmation bias your way into like, believing that
Mm.
this being is really loving.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm.
the realization that it's just us
Yeah.
floating on this rock and that nobody's coming to save us. Like that
Mm.
was a tough pill to swallow,
Wow.
you know? Because if it is really up to us,
Mm-hmm.
then the shit we're doing is pretty wild. It's pretty
Yeah.
fucked up,
Yeah.
you know?
Mm.
But on the bright side,
Mm-hmm.
out of that depression,
Mm-hmm.
out of that kind of like, well, what if there is no God, if there is no eternity, what does anything mean? Does it mean anything?
Mm.
And I decided if if damn, what is the phrase? If nothing matters, then everything matters. Because
Mm.
if nothing matters in reality, then what
Mm-hmm.
matters is what matters to you.
Okay. Yeah.
So everything matters.
Mm-hmm.
That you decide matters.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, and so I just really did some digging and found
Mm.
like, what mattered to me. And
Mm.
those are my relationships,
Mm-hmm.
whether, existing or new. Uh, those are my endeavors in life.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the things I find joy in,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Mm.
camaraderie with my fellow human being,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Mm.
Yeah, and it has been the most freeing experience like in my life.
Mm. Wow.
Not having an omniscient,
Mm-hmm.
omnipresent eye watching me
Yeah.
in my head all the
Exactly.
time,
Monitoring your thoughts.
monitoring my thoughts.
Mm.
Yeah, like it has been so freeing. And
Mm.
you know, eh, I can hear the Christians now chiming in. That's there it is. You just wanted to go sin. Okay, cool, man.
All right.
Cool. Yeah,
Mm, mm, mm.
man.
Yeah. It's work. It's
It really is
the work of having to take every thought captive. Do you know how many thoughts you have in the course of a day? Yeah.
exhausting.
You know how many brain cells are just firing all that and having to take all those thoughts and submit them to the lordship of someone you've never really met, but you've got a book shaping this person in your mind.
Bro, and we haven't even gotten into the topic of having mental illness. Could you imagine?
Mm.
Like I
Mm,
have
mm, mm,
ADHD and I haven't really been diagnosed with anything else, but I
mm,
cannot imagine having something like
mm,
OCD,
mm,
autism,
mm,
or or depression, these things that have been categorized as demon possessions in the
mm.
past.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
could not imagine.
mm,
It's impossible,
yeah.
you know? How is
But
that freedom for anybody?
we talk about this on the podcast a lot. The take my yoke upon you for my burdens are light is a lie. It is a it is a tremendous burden to have to please a deity in your mind. And you got a million contradictory passages to try to
Right,
figure out, have you run afoul of this verse? Have you run afoul of this verse? Well, these two verses contradict. So if you obey this one, you've got to disobey this. And then you're
right,
living in this tension.
right, right,
That's not freedom.
right,
That's not a light burden.
right,
That's
right.
bondage.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hmm.
And yeah, man. Uh what's it's funny is like take my yoke upon you for my burden is light, but then also like pick up your cross and die to yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Cool, man. Which is
Mm.
it? Yeah. So now I just start fights on the internet and cite the Bible on Facebook and
So, well, before I get to that, the activism, if we can call it that, did you share your unbelief with your loved ones, with your family?
not for a while. Not for
Okay.
a while. Like I had been an atheist, I want to say for like a couple years before I even came out on Facebook.
Mm.
Because one, my family is hella Christian.
Mm.
Um, and I had to really wrestle with like, if I come out as an atheist,
Mm.
will I still have access to my family?
Mm.
You know? And I wasn't sure.
Wow.
I wasn't
Wow.
sure.
Wow.
Thankfully, it's not that way.
Okay.
They still love me dearly.
Mm.
Um, they make their little comments here or there, but I rather that than not speaking to them at all.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
So you come out as an atheist to your family, they still accept you, cool. You start making waves on social media saying things about your unbelief.
Yeah.
What's that been like?
Okay, so a lot of the pushback that you may have seen me get is from a lot of the members from
Mm.
churches,
Mm-hmm.
and some people in passing that I met
Mm-hmm.
doing shows here or there, stuff like
Mm.
that. But yeah, like gosh, there's been maybe one or two people that have argued in earnest.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like honestly.
Yeah.
Um, But man, like, so
Mm.
I made a post about God condoning slavery in the
Mm-hmm.
Bible, and then this guy came
Mm.
on that, yeah, well, slavery in the Bible was not like the chattel slavery we know today. And I was like, okay, I hear you if you're talking about slavery for Hebrew people.
Mm-hmm.
That is not the
Mm-hmm.
only slavery that God
Right.
endorses. And before I got to make that comment, another Christian came and corrected that guy
Oh,
about it.
wow. That's good.
Yeah, right.
That's good.
And then he deleted his comment and started commenting Jesus is king. Yeah, yeah. So, and then when
Wow.
I finally came to push back, I said that he mentioned this, or I mentioned how
Mm, mm, mm,
uh God asked Israel to take these people as slaves from other nations and da da da. He said, well, my guess would be that those people weren't really people. Now, that may shock you, but you remember we talked about angels coming down, having sex with the daughters of men,
mm,
and making giants.
mm,
There's a school of thought that some of these tribes were
mm-hmm,
the descendants
mm,
of
mm,
those
mm,
giants, and so technically not people. And what's crazy, like what I said to him is, I was like, do you not see how dangerous it is
mm, mm, mm. To
because you believe in this
dehumanize.
book that you are now dehumanizing a
Mm,
group of people you've never even laid eyes upon?
mm,
So much so that you don't care that they are either murdered
mm.
in totality or made slaves for the rest of their
Right.
foreseeable lineage.
Mistreated and but there's also a tacit admission in that though that if they're not human, okay, then it's fine to do that to them. But what you're also saying is because if they were human, it would not be fine to do that to them.
Right.
So you're sort of admitting that if these people are human, God's tripping for commanding them to do this.
Right.
So you
Right.
need them to not be human.
Exactly. 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 And so it's just like
Hmm.
a they call it a shit sandwich. Like
Hmm.
you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
either way you flip it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, man. So my girlfriend, she got on me for making so many uh inflammatory posts because like
Hmm.
sometimes I am not as like sometimes I can come off really like scathing in my
Hmm.
critique because like
Hmm.
how could I not be? How could I not be?
Hmm.
Right? I
Well,
think
what's
about good.
I was going to ask this, but tie this into what you're saying. You think about what's your like why are you so intent on critiquing or speaking out against religion? Like why?
Okay. So we know what religion has done to our planet,
Hmm.
right? Whether it has been Christianity or Islam or Judaism,
Hmm.
Catholicism, because sometimes people who are Christians don't think Catholics are actually Christians.
Hmm.
But we know the effects that religion have
Hmm.
on large amounts of people.
Hmm.
And we both personally know the effect religion has on a person individually.
Hmm.
You're an artist, I'm an artist,
Hmm.
and self-expression is one of the most important things to me, I think,
Hmm.
of being a human being.
Hmm.
And religion, you'll find people that will argue that religion helps people self-express, but I I I I find that to be not true.
Hmm.
And I think more often than not, religion represses the self.
Hmm.
Um, and that's just not good for anybody.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
What about the person that says it's good that religion suppresses the self because look at what the self does unchecked, the selfishness of the self. So you need something to sort of uh, hold the self in check.
So that I will say only 4% of the people on the planet are atheists.
Mm,
And of that percent, like very few of them commit crimes compared to how many crimes religious people commit.
mm,
As a matter of fact, uh, in countries where crime is highest,
mm,
so is religiosity.
mm, mm,
And I'm sure that there are
mm,
nuances
mhm,
there
mhm,
in those situations, but it doesn't seem to me that being religious is helping people
mm,
not do crazy shit.
mm. It might even be the scapegoat that people need to do crazy shit. If I know that I'm going to be forgiven, or if I know that you're going to have to forgive me because you're religious, I could maybe do some things to you and just, hey, don't get vengeance is the Lord. Don't take it into your own hand. Vengeance is the Lord's, right? Um,
Dude, I follow a few like atheist kind of media outlets,
mhm,
and every day a different pastor, not
mhm,
Christian individual, pastor
mhm,
is being arrested
mhm,
for child either
mhm,
pornography
mhm,
or straight up assault,
Mm.
let alone all
Yeah.
the other scandals.
Mm.
Um, and some people may argue that this is an echo chamber, but like the vast majority of people committing crimes are religious.
Hmm.
Doesn't help. Not
If you
helping.
got if you got thoughts about that, holler at us in the comments. We will definitely be chopping it up with you. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean that's especially when you talk about the nations that are atheistic having less crime.
Uh,
Uh, I'm sure somebody would say there may be other factors there, like they may be more homogeneous in other ways, not just
yeah, sure.
lack of
Yeah.
religion, but all kinds of other things. But no, that's still a point that needs to be thought about and talked about there. Um, so you said radical acceptance of reality. What do you do with thoughts of, let's say, the afterlife?
I am glad that there is not an afterlife.
Hmm.
Um, while I enjoy my life,
Hmm.
it's also difficult. And
Hmm.
like I like the idea of having one shot,
Hmm.
you know,
Wow.
give it my best,
Yeah.
give it the old college try,
Hmm.
and we're good,
Hmm.
you know. I don't
Yeah.
think existing forever is going to be fun because
Hmm.
like to a conscious mind, I
Hmm.
mean, who knows? Like, what are you doing forever? Are you doing one thing forever? Can you like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, are you sitting there praising God for the rest of eternity? Do you not
Imagine a
think
being that's so glorious that you wouldn't even mind doing that, though.
I can't? I can't because I have ADHD, and there might be an argument that I won't have it in the
Right.
after.
He'll
Uh,
be so glorious that he'll keep your attention forever.
yeah. Uh, I, heaven to me is
Mm,
a place where like I can flit about multiple, you know what I mean? Like
mm,
as we spoke about, like I do a million different creative things, and that's
mm,
because like my psyche requires it,
mm, mm,
I could not imagine doing one thing forever,
mm.
and I'm glad that I don't have to.
That's what's up, man. Hey, I appreciate you telling your story as much as you did. I'm sure there's more with the ins and
Absolutely.
outs of every story, but um, I'd love to have you back on when I'm critiquing some sort of social
Oh,
current
please.
event. So maybe you
Absolutely.
come co-host the episode or whatever.
I'd
Do
love
you
to.
do anything on any other platforms other than Facebook?
Yeah, I'm on like Instagram, but on Instagram I do less critiquing of religion and more just posting my own music
Okay.
and
All
yeah.
right. Any other plans to do anything else with your activism in terms of spreading the good news that there's no good news?
I do plan on doing it. I don't know if I have so much the time right now to
Hmm.
dedicate. I'm in the process to like move in and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
Maybe sometime next year
Okay.
uh, I'll have some stuff out. I might drop something here soon because I have been
Okay.
thinking about just like dropping the like why I'm an atheist kind of video and getting that out there.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm not as much into the music as I used to be, but if
Yeah.
you want to put together a Ichabod theme song, we'll play you on every episode and send people to check out your music. So,
Hey man, we might could make that happen.
hey, it's up to you.
I could
I'm
make that
here.
happen.
I'm
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm down for it.
So, hey, well, much love to you, bro. Thank you so much. And I can't wait to post this. And I think more of these stories, especially, I always say this, stories from diverse individuals. I love having white folks on. I love having black folks on. I love
Yeah.
showing that this is not, because for a long time, atheism was seen as something that only white people could afford to do.
Yo, you know what? That was something I wanted to touch on that
Hmm.
I didn't even remember. But yeah, man, there's so few,
Hmm.
but I'm seeing more and more
Yeah.
people come out like nah, like,
Hmm.
Durante Lamar
Yeah. Yeah.
doing his thing, you're doing your thing.
Yeah.
Um,
My guy Tristan Harris is doing his thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I just saw his YouTube channel.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So it's a few of us out there, man.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, hopefully we'll grow the community and spread, like I said, the good news that there is no good news. And the reason why that's good news is, as a Christian, I used to always say, you can't have good news without bad news.
right.
And so you give the gospel to people, but you don't just go around saying Jesus died on the cross for your sins. You got to give them the bad news first. You
Yeah.
needed that. You're such a sinner. You're such a da, 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 da,
Such a worthless piece of shit.
da. Right? That you needed somebody to come and bleed on you for God to look at you favorably. What?
No.
So the good news that we're talking about is that there's no good news. And the reason why that's good news is because that means there's no bad news. The
Yeah,
bad news that we were trying to sell you to make you buy our snake oil, you don't need that anymore. And that's the good
exactly.
news.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
If I fall, I would never crawl. Get back up again, tuck my chin, uppercut like Ken, make them fuckers limp. You niggas been blinded by my opulence. Truth is, I don't give a fuck. I would not pretend. If you tried to walk in my shoes, you would never move. Bitch, I've been the boss with the moves. You been hitting snooze.
If you tried to walk in my shoes, you would never move. Bitch, I've been the